Tonight on the Daily Debrief, 2 arrests in an alleged attack on an actor. What's their connection to his television show? Plus, a defendant who claimed rough sex caused a victim's injuries, then blamed her boyfriend for her murder. He's ordered to pay up for the crime jurors agreed he committed. And the defense cuts into key prosecution evidence in the murder trial of a man accused of killing his business associate and that man's family. The nation's top criminal cases are on the Daily Debrief for Friday, February 15th. Everybody, welcome to the Debrief tonight. We're glad you're with us. Chicago police have made 2 arrests in an alleged attack on an actor. Jussie Smollett, known for his role on the Fox series Empire, says he was attacked by 2 men who yelled racist and homophobic slurs. Chicago police raided the homes of 2 Nigerian brothers this week and today placed those brothers under arrest. One of the brothers also appeared on the series Empire. WLS-TV in Chicago reports that Smollett failed to show up for a police interview this week, but eventually did talk to authorities. Despite rumors to the contrary, Fox says Smollett is not being written off the series, and police say they will treat Smollett as a victim as the investigation unfolds. Crime is costly. That's the lesson tonight for a convicted killer in Wisconsin who this week has been ordered to pay thousands of dollars to the family of his victim. Tonight, we take a look back at the case and look at the money now owed.
And if you would pass the verdict forms over to the bailiff.
A jury convicted George Burch of murdering Nicole Vanderheiden. Burch claimed another man, Doug Detry, was the real killer, but data from Detry's Fitbit suggested he was not active at the time of the killing. Here was the verdict.
State of Wisconsin versus George Stephen Burch, Brown County case 16 CF 1309. The verdict reads as follows. We, the jury, find the defendant, George Stephen Burch, guilty of first-degree intentional homicide, is charged in the information. It is signed by our foreperson and dated this first day of March, 2018. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, is this your verdict?
Yes. Defendant Burch will have to pay Doug Detry, the man he accused of committing the crime, about $23,500. That's for lost wages, expenses, and counseling. Detry asked for nearly $350,000, but didn't get it. Burch must also pay more than $6,000 to the victim's mother for lost wages. Burch himself is now serving a life sentence. He took the stand and claimed that he went home with the victim, but that Detry knocked him out after Detry caught him having rough sex with the victim. The jury did not believe anything about that testimony involving the victim's injuries.
What really happened was you drove Nicole home 20 miles away from where you lived, fully expecting that you were going to have sex, right? That was your expectation. You were going to have sex. That's why you're driving her home, right?
I was hoping that we would. It was leading from what had happened before and where we had spoken. It seemed like that's what was going to happen.
And when you get there and it becomes clear that Nikki isn't going to have sex with you, when she attempts to go into her house and leave your vehicle, that's when your mood changes, right?
No, sir.
That's when things get aggressive, don't they?
Not at all.
That's when you grab that cord and strangle her, don't you?
No, sir, not at all.
That's when Nikki gets slammed on the ground repeatedly when she's trying to run toward her house, when those bloodstains lead in a direction back to her home.
None of that is true.
Well, how do you know? You were out cold when Nikki was assaulted.
Because you said I did it.
Nikki was strangled. She had a fractured jaw, correct?
I don't know, sir. That's what the medical examiner said. But I can't speak for sir. I'm not a doctor.
You heard all of that, right?
Yes, sir.
You saw her injuries. You sat through court to see the defensive injuries to her hands, to her feet, to her palms, to her fingernails, that she fought for her life, right?
According to what the doctor said, yes.
Great cross-examination there by the district attorney. Joining me tonight is attorney Lisa Wells from Atlanta, Georgia. Lisa, good to see you.
Good to see you.
All right. Restitution is not something we frequently hear a lot and not something we frequently talk about in these criminal cases we follow here, but it's a big part of the back end of the criminal justice system, right?
It's huge. It's huge. One of the things that the justice system is interested in, to whatever degree it can, is to make the victims whole. And of course, in certain cases like murder cases, you'll never make them whole. But it's a big part of the justice system, absolutely.
And the expenses we saw the judge breaking down there, things like the cost of the headstone and whatnot, those are all well and good items for a restitution case like this.
Yeah, I don't see that in Georgia, I will say, but that would be an example of a restitution item, and it's an interesting one. I like it. I think but I haven't seen that in Georgia.
Watch out, you're not a prosecutor. You might get hit with that now. So, question, are criminal defense attorneys involved with this stage frequently, or does restitution usually just happen on application to the judge and then basically move along by simple operation of a statute?
It's here we will, it has to be proven. And so, for example, it would be a medical bill, or it would be an item that would need to be fixed, the repair bill. So it would have to be proven with some sort of documentation. And then, insurance, what your deductible would be. And then sometimes we are not disputing whether or not the event happened. Sometimes we just have restitution hearings here. So it's not. The defense is very involved with that.
I understand. In this case, the judge basically noted that George Burch has next to no money, so it's up to the Department of Corrections, where he's currently housed, to try to figure out how he's going to pay. Lisa, we're going to check in again with you at the end of the broadcast. Moving along now, Bill Cosby is speaking out from behind bars, saying he will, quote, never have remorse for the sexual encounter which landed him in prison. In a statement dictated to his wife, Cosby calls the encounter consensual. He says he settled a civil suit out of court and was already declared not guilty in 2005. But in his words, a low-life district attorney and a corrupt judge are the ones who sent him to prison to, quote, fuel their political aspirations. He compared his own imprisonment on those sex charges to the imprisonments of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela, and others. This statement from Cosby will likely legally backfire. Cosby needs to show remorse in order to secure early release under Pennsylvania law. We are planning to bring you 2 new trials next week here on the Law and Crime Network. David Dooley of Kentucky is facing his second trial on charges he murdered his co-worker, Michelle Mockbee. Why a second trial? Because it turned out the lead investigator in the case, the first case that is, was sleeping with the prosecutor in the original trial. The prosecutor didn't even make it past a primary election after her own political party urged her to resign. The charges he murdered a mother of 3 back in 2006. Authorities say victim Melissa Howard was stabbed and beaten. She had just won a child custody battle against her ex-husband. The defendant was her ex-husband's friend. The ex-husband has an alibi for the time of the killing. Jury selection in this case is also scheduled to begin on Monday. Still ahead tonight here on the Daily Debrief, the McStay family murder trial in California. We have information prosecutors convinced the judge to allow in the case. Information which came from the defendant's phone. That's after the break, so stay with us. Yet again to the Debrief. Testimony about suspicious computer searches and strange business checks to report in the McStay family murder case. First, though, let's get you caught up to speed on what has happened so far in this complex case.
How does this family of 4 disappear off the face of the earth?
California small business owner Joseph McStay and his entire family disappeared February 4th, 2010. Their car was abandoned near the border. Authorities believed this video showed them fleeing to Mexico, presumably to avoid business debts. Case closed? Not even close. Fast forward more than 3 years to November 2013. A biker discovered the skull of one of the family members in the Mojave.
Across the remains.
All 4 were buried nearby. Authorities arrested Chase Merritt, a business associate to Joseph McStay. They believe he killed for money.
The why boils down to greed and greed's child, fraud.
The defense says Merritt didn't do it.
Charles Merritt, which everybody calls Chase, that was his best friend.
The state has presented a $4,000 check from McStay to Merritt, made out the day McStay disappeared. But Merritt never cashed it. He told police there was always money and merchandise moving back and forth between him and McStay. since they frequently did business together.
Someone calls you that indicates that they are Joseph McStay.
Someone with at least some access to McStay's business accounts tried to change his QuickBooks software right after McStay vanished. The state also presented cell phone searches for information about the family's disappearance made by Merritt shortly after the family's bodies turned up in the desert. In those graves, a hammer prosecutors believe was the murder weapon. Also, shards of a bath mat. Authorities think it matches linens missing from the family's home.
They were beaten about the head and face until they died.
The family's home, prosecutors say, is the crime scene, but evidence is scant.
You will look for things, signs of violence, correct?
Yes.
And you didn't see any of them?
No, sir.
One officer who took photographs there realized back at the lab that she may have found blood on the family's table, but she didn't see it when she was in the house, and it was cleaned before anyone knew it was there.
When I saw it, I was horrified.
Why?
Because I thought it was something I missed.
The defense is pointing to an alternate suspect who also did business with the family and to unknown DNA found in the family's graves.
Another piece of evidence the defense contested was an enhanced image from a neighbor's security camera. The original dark and fuzzy recording occurred at night. This, prosecutors believe, is the defendant's truck in the McStay family neighborhood just after the family vanished. Traffic there is rare because the family lived on a dead-end street. An evidence hearing late yesterday revealed interesting information about the defendant's phone. Chase Merritt had an image of the tire tracks left behind at the family's grave sites. Searches about changing one's identity, searches about the Mexican border, an image of himself at the gravesite memorial, and a screenshot of Joseph McStay's phone contacts. Again, this was all on the defendant's phone. The images from the gravesite were all taken after the biker found the family's bones. The judge is allowing some of that evidence into the trial. Until next week in this case. The defense, however, is fighting back against suggestions that checks written from the victim's accounts to defendant Chase Merritt. When were they written? In the days before and the days after the family is believed to have vanished.
Can you tell us when this check was created?
At 11:29 a.m.
And when was that check deleted?
11:37 a.m.
Who is that check made out to?
This was made out to Charles Merritt.
Showing you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 429. Is this audit history reflected on the activity log that you have?
Yes, it is.
Can you tell us when this check was created?
At 7:59 p.m.
On what date?
On February 4th, 2010.
And was this check also deleted?
Yes, it was.
What time was that?
8:05 p.m.
Who is that check made out to?
Charles Merritt.
Showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 430 for identification purposes. Can you tell us if this is also reflected, if this audit history is also reflected on the activity log that you have?
Yes, it is.
And is this for a check that was created on February 5th of 2010 at 12:06 p.m.?
Yes, it is.
Can you tell us when this check was deleted?
(12:38 p.m. on February 5th.
And who is this check made out to?
Charles Merritt.
Those were just some of the checks prosecutors pointed out earlier this week, yet it is unclear whether many of those checks were actually cashed. The defense forced another investigator to discuss the entire timeline surrounding that evidence. There were phone calls, too. Maybe this isn't as suspicious as the state wants jurors to believe.
According to the phone records, there was a call from my client's phone to Joseph McStay. Appears to be checks added, deleted, and then calls make it quick phone.
Correct.
And then after that 1 hour and 47-minute phone call, again on item 9163, 501, there's a phone call from my client's phone to Joseph McStay's phone again, correct?
Yes.
So all these phone calls that preceded or were after all the check edits and everything that was done in QuickBooks, did you note all of that in your report?
I didn't.
Did you even notice it?
Objection argumented.
Sustained.
Did you examine the phone records to see if there was any calls between Mr. Merritt and Mr. McStay around the time of QuickBook activity?
I did not analyze the phone record.
Make it seem a little less suspicious now with the communication?
Objection argumented.
Sustained calls for speculation and conclusion.
Another great cross-examination there. Look, testimony this past week also involved the McStay family's computers. Someone was searching for something on at least one of those computers at 2 o'clock in the morning, 4 days after the family vanished. One of the sites that person checked was MSN.com, which may have been the computer's homepage. But there were also searches to GoMexico.com and other similar sites in the days leading up to the family's disappearance.
The inquiry is about travel information for kids and documents that are required for kids to go to Mexico.
Yes.
Okay. And I'll show you 848C. Same thing. That would be a site that would be used for information on general entry requirements into Mexico.
Yes.
And 848D, that would also be from about.com, and that would be a site that would be a site where somebody's asking for information about children travel and children requirements to get into Mexico.
Objection, not submission. Overruled. Yes, it does.
And again, 848E, about.com site, general passport information, whether one is needed or not, for Mexico. Is that what that site reflects?
Yes.
The defense noted that some of the documents on the computer involved the defendant, Chase Merritt. However, police did not give them a very thorough look.
A folder called Merritt/EB with the folder name indicating the T number and investigator from our lab that the files were saved in.
Well, this is a document that was identified by your team. Is that correct?
This report was not generated by me. If this document was located in that folder and came from... speculating at this point. Go ahead. And came from an exact copy of what was provided to this examiner.
Would it be safe to say, you can turn the page, it's okay. Would it be safe to say that this is a document that you've never seen before?
Yes.
And would this also say that this is a document that was on the e-machine desktop computer?
The source path would suggest that. However, there's not enough information for me to be able to tell where this came from.
And this is, again, a document that has a name of Dan Payoff?
Yes, it was an Excel spreadsheet.
Okay. So even though, let's say, for example, you didn't concentrate on other stuff, just mainly internet activity, and this is not internet activity, is it?
No, it's not.
Okay. But other folks could go into the computer and maybe concentrate on documents or other stuff and come up with some files that were not in your report, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Does that have a file creation date? Would you be able to know when that document was created?
This report indicates the file was created on...
Hearsay lacks foundation.
This report suggests the file was created on February 19th, 2009 at 6:22 p.m.
Okay, let's turn once again to attorney Lisa Wells. Lisa, a simple question here. Did that detective come across well on the stand, in your opinion, or not?
He came across terrible. He didn't analyze phone records, didn't analyze the documents, barely looked really at any analyzation of the internet activity. It's terrible.
Maybe I'm asking too much here, and maybe there's another officer who's going to get up there at some point and say, okay, I did examine all these other documents on the computer and whatnot, but look, I mean, wouldn't this detective, who's kind of holding a higher rank, he's got stripes on his sleeve, be the guy that prosecutors want to say, hey, look, we did a holistic examination of the computer. It had internet activity, but it also had documents, and we looked at all of this together. And then we came up with a theory. Wouldn't that have been a lot more authoritative, a lot more believable?
Yeah, I mean, who's in charge here? It just doesn't feel like that there is everybody that they question. It seems like that they didn't do it, but you keep waiting for the next person to be the one, and it's not coming. It's just not coming on this case.
Look, I agree that obviously something happened to this family, and I agree that something a little bit fishy is going on with the computer. I will give the state that, but again, who did it? Is it this defendant, or is it this other business partner who also had his hands in the cookie jar financially at Earth Inspired Products, the company that Joseph McStay, the victim, owned?
Yeah, we have no idea who all had access to the computer. And I mean, the other gentleman, Kavanaugh, he was the web guy. So he would be sophisticated enough to get in and make changes like this. So it's just so hard to say where it came from. They didn't seem to analyze the source.
A tough case. This is a case that's been dragging on. We're going to continue to stay on top of it, though. It's a fascinating case. It's just a really tough case to watch. Attorney Lisa Wells from Atlanta, Georgia, we appreciate your input on the debrief tonight, as always.
Thank you for having me.
And a reminder, folks, that we will have Brian Ross Investigates coming up following this broadcast if you're watching on the Law and Crime Network. If not, certainly you can find it on our homepage, lawandcrime.com. We appreciate you for watching the Daily Debrief tonight and this week. I'll see you right back here at 5 o'clock Monday afternoon on the Law and Crime Network. Good night.